What's up, Internet? Welcome to Once Over. I'm Kaylee, and with me today I have producer Chris, and we're going to be giving the once over to Hellraiser.
We came.
There will be spoilers.
Give it a good once over.
Giving us the once over.
Giving him the once over.
Give me a once over.
Down to give us the once over.
For a routine once over.
Once over.
Oh, just once over lightly.
Chris, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so
Thanks for
excited to
having
have you back.
It's great to be back talking about a movie. I have no idea why I was obsessed with it as a 16-year-old.
Well, clearly still obsessed with it based on your shirt.
What?
What? Never. As the 16-year-old, this movie's a little bit violent and sexual.
Yeah, it's got it all.
It really does.
Yeah, it's got some brutal kills, demons to some, maggots, roaches.
Blood.
Oh, lots and lots of blood. Sometimes the stage blood is a little too bright, but you know, whatever.
Forgive
It's
that.
got its flaws, but it's got its charms.
Well, before we get super into the movie, will you tell everybody a little bit about who you are and where they can find you?
Who are you, and what are you doing here?
I'm producer Chris. I am a faithful drunk sidekick to Carl on Who Are These Podcasts. You can check us out with all the goodies at whoarethese.com. Kaylee and I will be among a roster of tons and tons of people at Dabblecon II, where we I call it a special kind of tribute to Stuttering John Melendez. It's a whole weekend all about Stut Joe. More info on that at WATPlive.com.
And of course, that will also be linked down below so that everybody can come and check it out. Definitely check out WATP. I get to be a guest on there sometimes as well, which is amazing. I get to hang out with producer Chris and Carl, and I am so excited to meet everybody at Dabblecon 2 and live in Detroit.
Oh yeah, that's right. Detroit 3.
Whoop whoop.
Can't believe it. 3 years have gone by already.
Amazing.
Yeah, we're busy. Oh, shit.
It's great. It's great. It's great. Okay, so of course today we are talking about Hellraiser from 1987. This is a British supernatural horror film that really, in my opinion, it comes down to asking the question, what would a woman do for a good lay?
Yes, that is the core of the story.
That really, truly is the core of the story. And of course, it was written and directed by Clive Barker, who also wrote the novella Hellbound Heart.
Yes.
Wait.
Ironically, I've never read it.
No?
No, I read the books of blood and lots of stuff, and never got my hands on the. It's a short story, I believe.
Yeah, novella.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I read it. I went through a big Clive Barker phase when I was in high school. Unsurprisingly, I think many people did. I was never a huge Clive Barker fan. I like him. It's kind of the same way that I feel about Stephen King sometimes.
Yes.
Where sometimes it just gets a little bit too lofty for me. I can't really get into it. But whatever.
Yeah.
Perhaps that shapes a little bit of my opinions about why I am not the hugest Hellraiser fan.
Right. Well, we could talk about all the sequels. No! But let's talk about this one. But
Yes.
there is some shit attached to this movie. And there's some shit in the movie, too. I can, right out of the gate, I would say the opening and the closing are the worst parts. It's almost like they filmed out of sequence and ran out of money.
A little bit of that definitely is true, especially in the closing. I personally, one of the things that I love about this film is the practical effects. I think that the practical effects are extremely, extremely effective. However, by the end of the movie, they did exactly what you just guessed. They ran out of money in their $1 million budget, and Clive Barker actually sat and animated all of the hand-drawn little majiggies.
It shows.
Well, this doesn't deserve to win.
Yes, I believe he said
Yeah.
that he did it in 1 weekend. So
I believe it.
It's kind of impressive, but even for 1987 standards, this was definitely not good looking.
Correct.
In parts. It focuses on a mystical puzzle box that summons Cenobites.
Yeah, and what are Cenobites?
That is a great question. I would say that they are like multi-dimensional, sadomasochistic creature being sort of thing, and they blur the lines between pleasure and pain. But I think there's a lot of debate about what they actually are, so how would you define them?
They were monsters in a movie that I liked when I was a kid.
Monsters with a really cool design.
Yeah, so that's the thing. I wasn't a big slasher film guy.
Yeah.
And this was different. This stood out in 87. The puzzle box, the Cenobites, the design exactly, really took me in. I didn't know what to expect when I rented this at the supermarket.
It was the style at the time.
Also, the music struck me and still does upon rewatching. I'm like, that's goddamn impressive.
So the music score is actually interesting. It was originally supposed to be scored by an industrial band named Coil.
I don't want to be the one.
I read that.
And then instead, for some reason, they couldn't do it. I don't remember exactly why, but Christopher Young jumped in and did the score. He actually also did the score for Nightmare on Elm Street 2. Everybody's favorite Nightmare on Elm Street, right, guys?
I didn't get into it.
That means you're not gay.
Yeah, I've never seen it. I never really... I don't know, man. Like I said...
Super gay. It's like insanely gay.
when I
That's
think
one of
that-
the gayest movies that I've ever seen.
The stuff I like from the 80s was... and I'll take your word for it.
Yeah.
Like Reanimator stood out. I don't know. I needed something different. I liked horror. I liked being scared. I liked aliens and Jaws, but...
So this movie doesn't usually get categorized as body horror, but I definitely think that it could kind of play into that genre, and maybe that's a little bit more of what you're saying that you enjoyed of the horror genre at that time.
Yeah. And this had a story.
Yes, absolutely.
A very good story.
Absolutely. So speaking of the story, let's talk a little bit about the actors, because I do think that something that this film has that is extremely strong is great character development.
Yeah.
So for the Cenobites, we have Doug Bradley as the leader Cenobite. I can't say that word also. I'm going to say it wrong 50,000 times in this review.
Sounds like a snack.
Yeah.
You want some Cenobites?
You want a little cinnamon bite?
The name is a little bit odd. There they are. There's the little bites. Look at them. They're sitting there.
So he plays the leader who has become known as Pinhead. In this film, he's never actually called Pinhead, but of course we all know him as Pinhead.
Sure.
Then, of course, we have Nicholas Vince as the chattering Cenobite.
Yeah, great work.
And then Simon Bamford is the Butterball Cenobite.
Yeah.
And the girl whose name I can't remember. Whatever.
Yeah, I forgot too.
They were calling her, during filming, they were calling her Deep Throat.
Oh, I can see why.
Yeah. And then for the actual film itself, we are introduced to Larry and Julia, who are a husband and wife.
Voila.
Played by Clare Higgins and Andrew Robinson.
The great Andrew Robinson.
Absolutely amazing Star Trek.
You know what the sad part is, Odo? I'm a very good tailor.
Dirty Harry.
Dirty Harry,
Yeah.
Scorpio and Dirty Harry.
Don't pass out on me yet. No, not yet. Not yet. Don't pass out on me yet, you rotten oinker.
You ain't got the right. Yeah, he's fucking great.
Yes.
And he's got a captivating presence about him.
He does. He comes across, I would say that his character is very, oblivious is too obvious a word for him in this film, but he comes off as very optimistic. He comes off as very hopeful.
Yeah, he's likable,
a little
dorky.
naive. He has a daughter named Kirsty,
Yeah.
played by Ashley Lawrence. And then we're also introduced to Frank, who's played by Sean Chapman, and he is Larry's brother.
Yeah, he's a good-looking prick. He's a hedonist, right?
Yes.
Is that a good way to put it?
Yeah, oh,
Okay.
absolutely. I think that's the perfect way to describe him.
So that's how the movie opens, is with this hedonist. He's in some foreign land. Wikipedia said Morocco.
What's your pleasure, Mr. Cotton?
And he's purchasing this puzzle box. We're wondering as viewers, what's in the box?
What's in the fucking box?
I like that opening shot a whole bunch. They're drinking absinthe, which I think is very unique. You don't see a lot of absinthe in movies. It was a very green absinthe.
I do love that opening shot. It looks very British. This whole film, with the dissolves, the pans, and that opens almost like a James Bond movie. It's like, pull back, you know, and it also closes that way. And I like that a lot. All right, so Frank's in Morocco buying a Rubik's Cube. Why? Go.
A cursed Rubik's Cube, some might say. It's almost like a monkey paw, but not in the good way.
The Frogurt is also cursed.
Yes.
Ooh, that's bad.
Yes, exactly. So back at home in his attic, he opens up the box and these chained hooks come out and pierce into his skin.
Yeah. You'd think I would have tapped out right then as a 60-year-old, like, this is some hokey shit.
I liked that.
The hooks in the pizza dough?
Yeah.
With the jelly?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You don't like that? You thought it was
I
too
do
cheesy?
now. I'm into it.
I think that it just looked, I think it looked weird. And I
Yeah.
like weird.
The hooks come out of the box. That's the only time that happens. It's at the outset of the movie. Never happens again. Kirsty's gonna play with the box soon, so to speak.
Fuck yeah.
She loves playing with boxes.
He gets it. He's laughing.
The hooks are normally controlled by the Cenobites. But why did they come out of the box then?
I don't know.
I guess it's that opening sequence that's supposed to grab us. And boy, did they grab Frank.
They sure do. They sure do. But Pinhead reassembles the box, and then we get to see this assembly of the face pieces.
Yeah, kind of cool.
Which, again, I think that's a really cool shot. The place that it lost me, where I might have gotten lost on this film, is that then when we get the box back, there's like all those little sperms swimming in.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, that's a little, maybe we could have done a slightly better effect there. On the other hand, sperm... We're about to get very sexual. It's sperm swimming into a box. Maybe it's a little bit more telling than, I don't know.
Let's back up 1 second.
Yes.
So, Frank,
Yes.
he's in his attic, on the floor, shirtless, he's got candles lit. It's a very ceremonial type affair while he's trying to solve the box. Massaging sensually out and checking it out. Here's how you solve the box. There's a button, you just push right in the middle.
I am the smartest man alive!
Don't you think that's
One
hilarious?
button.
And that releases the hooks. Who knows?
Well, maybe he had to get it in a certain configuration
but it
before
is-
the button worked. We don't know.
I wrote, push the obvious hole in the middle after sensually massaging it.
I know how to treat a lady.
It's pretty funny. But anyways, we're going to have to suspend lots of disbelief.
Yes, we certainly are. So later on, Julia and Larry end up moving into this house, and the house is disgusting.
Yes.
But it does have all this beautiful old stained glass, a lot of religious iconography.
You look at this.
I don't understand who sold them this house in
It
disgusting
comes across
stupor.
as he inherited it.
Yeah, that's
Because
true.
he said the old homestead.
Yeah, you're right.
So they discover that Frank has been staying in the attic, as a squatter.
Yes.
And he's nowhere to be seen.
This is also when we start to get to know Julia a little bit better. So
Yeah.
for her, I think she's very cold. She's suspicious. She comes across as suspicious, kind of a bitch a little bit.
You got any beer?
There's some in the fridge.
Thanks, bitch.
But she's also very inquisitive. And those are kind of the character traits that I took the most away from her.
We learn a lot in a short amount of time. We establish that as she starts nitpicking things about the house,
Ugh, smells damp.
with good reason.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
It's disgusting.
You can see that Larry's been there before and he's kind of walking on eggshells around her. And she puts her cigarette out on the floor in classic manner.
She's a little prissy, maybe.
Right.
Is a good way to describe her.
You really want to move in here?
So she's having this flashback looking at Frank's belongings that he's left behind. It looks like he left in a hurry. While Larry answers the phone, and it's hilarious. He hears the phone ring a few flights down. He goes, "What the hell's that?"
Who is this?
Yeah.
It's a phone, Larry. You should probably go get it.
Everybody has a landline. It's 1987.
87.
I suspect you need more practice working your telephone machine.
So Kirsty's on the line, and we establish with that phone call, while Julia's getting all wet upstairs thinking about Frank, Kirsty's not a big fan of Julia, and she got herself a room instead of staying with them.
Yes.
And they also rip on Brooklyn a few times. I don't know why.
I suppose it's better than Brooklyn.
I'm not sure what area they're supposed to be in. Red Hook or something, but what's wrong with Brooklyn? Brooklyn's dope.
Boo, we hate Brooklyn. We also discover, of course, so Larry and Frank are brothers.
Yep.
And little does Larry know, but Julia had a previous affair with Frank.
Yeah, this is a good flashback.
And those memories are very torrid. They have sex on her wedding dress, which is very naughty. Don't do that. That's very, very, very bad.
Man, I thought you were cool.
One of Frank's favorite toys is his switchblade that he has to keep opening for everyone.
Yes.
He ruins a perfectly good negligee.
Yes, he sure does.
Yeah.
It was lovely.
Julia's upstairs, pining for Frank.
Yes.
Larry is trying to keep the peace. He's like, come on, give Julia a break, Kirsty.
Yes. Kirsty.
Kirsty.
What a dumb name.
Yeah.
Not Christy.
It's only cool when Frank says it when he's desiring her and goes, Kirsty.
I don't like that either.
Yeah. Julia, having gotten wet over this flashback, announces to Larry, let's stay here. You know, she's like, I'm cool at this place.
Yeah, maybe Frank will show back up again.
And Larry says, we're moving in Sunday.
At the same time that she's fantasizing, we also get Larry carrying a mattress up the stairs. I think it's a pretty goofy little scene. So it's Larry and a couple of movers trying to move it up.
You got it? Got it.
At first, I was like, okay, we could have come up with anything else. But I actually think that it's kind of the stereotypical movie trope where you see like a big hallway. We'll see a big hallway later. It's very vaginal. It's a very vaginal
train.
canal, yes.
Push it to me as I pull.
So we're getting the mattress going up the staircase. And it's a challenge to fit, and things aren't working exactly well.
This action sequence is also syncing up with another flashback where Julie's getting railed by Frank.
Yes.
So as they're trying to bang this mattress up, they keep jogging back and forth between that. It's not subtle.
No, it is not subtle.
But I like it, and it's also gory as shit, because what's about to happen
is that Larry is about to cut his hand.
And you see it coming a mile away.
Yes.
You're waiting and waiting.
You're waiting. And it's a long time.
Yeah.
It's a long time that you wait for that. And it is, the payoff
is disgusting.
Absolutely worth it. So he runs up to find Julia with his bleeding hand.
Yeah.
And we get these very loud blood drips. The blood drip noise is like stunningly beautiful. It's one of those like shocking moments that's just a little bit of everything. It feels like it's in slow motion. I don't actually remember if it is in slow motion or not, but it feels like it's in slow motion. And the blood soaks into the floor, and the floor almost breathes.
I wrote, what are the blood rules in this scenario? Because something magic is happening, and you can tell because some corny-ass Tim Burton music comes on. Larry needs stitches. Julia escorts him out of the attic, and this is where the Tim Burton music comes in, and we see, I don't even fucking know what the rules are, like I said. So something is coming to life beneath the floor. Is it in another dimension, or is it right beneath the subflooring of the attic? I mean, I still don't know.
Yeah.
I've seen this 40 times. I guess I don't care.
Whatever it is causing a bunch of drippiness, a bunch of gooiness, and we are seeing something monstrous being resurrected.
Yeah. First we see lungs.
This shot is amazing. And again, this is why I say the practical effects are what sell this movie for me.
Yep.
I might not be the biggest fan of this movie, but I love the practical effects, especially in the scene. It is super, super cool.
Frank is coming back, by the way, if we didn't establish that.
Well, we don't know that yet.
I wrote, even the rats were scared. Remember? They're like, oh, what the fuck is this? One, it looks like an antenna at first, punches through the floorboard. Then another one, it's his arms. And he lifts himself out. After we see some time-lapse photography of his skull coming together and all this shit.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
And the scene kind of ends with this yell.
Yes.
Which is very guttural, and again,
very painful.
Yes.
Yeah, the dude is missing a lot of stuff. And it's very kind of classic in a way. Almost like one of those Hammer films, or just some very old school.
Oh, absolutely. I completely agree.
And that was one of the selling points to me watching this, was like, oh my God. Watching a human corpse come to life.
And this happens relatively early in the film. And I think that one of the reasons that this movie got a lot of criticism from people like Ebert is because it was extremely graphic, extremely violent right out the gate. They had to do a lot to keep an X rating off of this film because of the violence and because of the extremely overt sexual nature of the film.
It was very graphic at the time.
But I loved it. I was like, hell yeah, do more, keep coming, longer. I want to see more of these things.
We gotta say more hell yeah.
Did I just say it? I remember saying it.
What's up, puzzle box people? Okay. So Frank, I suppose we know it's Frank. Monster is there in the attic.
Skinless Frank, actually. We could refer to him as Skinless Frank. That still does imply that we know that he is Frank. But I will point out, Skinless Frank is played by Oliver Smith. So once we get into actual human Skinless Frank, Oliver Smith.
And it's great.
Job.
Yeah, two completely different voices. Yeah. They didn't try too hard. And then this is going to come up later. Different actors, totally different voices. Yeah. It's comical at times, unintentionally. But there is humor sprinkled throughout this movie. And I like pointing that out, too. I mean, first of all, Butterball Cenobite, come on.
Amazingly good.
Yeah, with big goggles on.
All of the Cenobites were very heavily inspired by, like, the punk fashion, and you can absolutely tell, I think, especially with Butterball.
Cut to dinner party. Larry's obviously back from the hospital. His hand is wrapped.
Doctors.
There's friends over. So it's Julia and Larry hosting 3 other couples. Yeah. And one of the couples is Kirsty and her gay boyfriend.
Yes. What a wonderful way to summarize him. I have notes about their no chemistry kiss later in the movie, so
I think he's
don't
the singer
disagree.
from Aha.
I don't disagree with you. During the party, Julia gets up and she says, you know what, I'm just going to go to bed early.
Yeah, I'm going to defer to my notes here. Julia leaves because she's a cheating, jaded cunt.
Thank you.
Yes.
And here's Frank bumping around in the attic. So Frank is intentionally making some sounds, trying to bait her up there. Yeah. He wasn't invited to the party, so he's probably a little jealous. He's going to ruin it for everyone.
So she sees a goo on the floor when she goes up to the attic. She sees some sort of substance.
This movie should have been called Goo.
Yeah.
It is a gooey movie.
And a creepy hand grabs her.
This is straight out of my fucking nightmares.
Yes.
You think
The
you're
hand
alone?
on the ankle.
Dude, still freaks me the fuck out.
I remember the first time that I watched this movie, and I used to jump in and out of my bed because I was convinced that a hand was going to come and do this thing to me.
Yeah.
No.
And it's not like an uncommon fear. There's a lot of scary and gross shit in this movie, and I think that is the scariest moment. Being grabbed by your ankle when you think you're alone. She doesn't know he's up there.
This is, however, the first time that we really get an inkling that this might be Frank, because after the hand grabs her, we hear a voice say, Julia.
Yeah, so he grabs her ankle, she jumps away, and then we see the shot of him. His legs don't work yet. So
yeah.
This scares the fuck out of me. You can see I got goosebumps.
Oh my god!
You're in a bald-ass attic, unfinished, and there's a living corpse crawling after you.
Julia? Don't look at me.
He gets her attention and says, don't look at me. Okay, I'm gonna look away. You don't hurt me.
Yeah. Please don't grab my ankle like that anymore.
I'll trust you. And this comes up a few times in the film. I think it's unintentional. I think it's a trope, I guess. Don't look at me. Don't watch me. You know, whatever. This isn't meant for your eyes. So many things happen in this movie, it seems like manners would be out the window at that point.
We don't really know what his intentions are when it comes to her. We know that she's still fantasizing about him. We don't really know how he feels about her. What we do know is that he needs her for some reason. Because he's saying, help me.
Right.
Maybe the reason that he doesn't want her to look at him is because he wants her to still idolize him in the ways that she clearly has been.
Yeah. So he's manipulative to the core.
To the core.
He knows.
Jesus.
Hey. Hell yeah.
Stop. You stop it, you. We do kind of figure out during the sequence that Larry's blood brought Frank back. And so we're getting this idea that blood is creating this regeneration and that Frank also needs more blood in order to heal further. He kind of gives us little drips and drabs throughout the film. So like we learn a little bit in each one of the sequences where we see him. As he regenerates more and more, we get to see a little bit more of his body, and we also get to hear a little bit more of the backstory of why he is doing this.
Yes. It's the 80s horror version of Jaws. You don't see the shark till over an hour in Jaws.
Yeah.
We see the Cenobites right at the beginning, just like we get a taste of Jaws at the beginning. And then not for a fucking hour and 10 minutes do we get to really see them.
One of the things that I think was challenging for me about this movie when I was a kid, and I would say that my criticisms of it now are different.
Yeah, me too.
The thing that was challenging for me as a kid is that I didn't really think that the Cenobites were evil.
Weird kid.
I didn't really think by the end of the movie that Frank was evil. I kind of thought that Julia she's an antagonist, but I think she's desperate. I don't know that I would call her evil. And so I had kind of a hard time creating the monster in this film.
Sure. I'm going to counter with a couple things.
Yes, please.
The Cenobites might not be inherently evil, whatever that means, but they're dicks because they double-crossed Kirsty at the end. Frank, Yeah, I mean, the guy is just a thrill seeker and doesn't really give a fuck about anything.
He's a hedonist.
Yeah, okay.
I can't fault a man for that.
I can't either, and I think I identified with him a little.
Yeah.
Right after sex, he jumps off Julia and he's like,
It's never enough.
which led him to the box. I mean, a different box. Yeah. Hell yeah! Anywho, we go back to the dinner party. Kirsty's hammered.
Yes.
She's stumbling around, looking for the bathroom.
Stumbles upstairs.
Yeah, and runs into Julia. And I do like this scene because Julia is fucked up because she just was accosted by this living corpse. Mm-hmm. And apparently it's Frank who needs her help. She's like trying to keep it together in front of Kirsty. It's awkward. And then gay boyfriend comes in and breaks that up a little.
Thought I'd lost you.
Like, hey, we gotta go.
I really like in those moments also Julia is literally creating a barrier. Julia is putting her hand up so that Kirsty can't move forward.
Right.
And I think that that's a really symbolic moment. Despite the fact that Julia is kind of a bitch, she's sort of trying to protect Kirsty. I guess we don't really know if she's trying to protect Kirsty or if she is trying to fuck Frank and trying to protect that information from getting out because obviously she's married to Larry.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit hard to tell what her motives are here, but I really like that moment. It feels a little bit more maternal.
That's a good point, and she's still a relatively good person, if not bitchy, at this point. During the first flashback, when they discover Frank's been squatting there, she was in love with Larry. She was proud that she was about to get married. Why they're having a drink together, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, things escalate quickly, but Frank gets what he wants, whether he knows he wants it or not. Gay boyfriend scoots Kirsty away, back to wherever she's staying. A homeless guy.
Derelict.
A derelict.
That's how he's credited.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
A vagrant.
I was going to say, homeless cricket eater.
Yes, well, that sure is what he will become.
Yeah. Spooks them a little, and then they make out, and then the camera pulls back.
We gotta talk about the kiss. I have to talk about the kiss.
It is the most unsexy kiss.
I was literally like...
Muppets kissing.
But you could have just left this kiss out. I think that... I don't even think her boyfriend is necessary. Kirsty becomes the main protagonist in the film. In the beginning of the movie, Julia very much is, but Kirsty takes over that role about halfway through. I don't think that Kirsty, as the final girl, needs to have a boyfriend. I don't think that he's necessary. I think, if anything, he detracts from the movie with that shitty kiss.
You know, I never thought about it because he seems so superfluous. I'm like, let's get back to the puzzle box.
Yeah, I don't even have his name written down. I don't know what I don't know what that actor's name is because I don't care.
What's he credited as?
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Oh.
While they're having this no chemistry kiss, we actually get one more flashback to Julia and Frank. It's a very quick one. It's Julia saying, "I'll do anything for you."
Anything?
Anything. And there's all this like lip.
Yeah.
Like
This comes up a few more times. It's some signature master image.
Very sexual.
Clive really dug. But there's always this finger smearing a perfectly good lipstick job.
I do think that that's a really important moment because this is where we're getting the fact that Julia is completely devoted to Frank.
That's a great point. We need to establish that she is willing to do anything. She says those words. Turns out she wasn't a liar.
From this sequence, from this flashback sequence of Julia and Frank banging, we also get Kirsty's nightmare. Her nightmare sequence, I think, is really beautifully shot. It reminds me a little bit of the body bag in Nightmare on Elm Street.
Tina?
It's like kind of like slow-mo. You get in this movie, there's all these feathers.
Yeah, there's a lot of contrast.
It's very beautiful.
Yeah.
And then you see a sheet covering a human. Who we later learn is Larry.
Oh, I thought it was the boyfriend.
I think it's Larry.
Okay, whatever. It looked like the boyfriend to me, but whatever.
One of the things that actually is really interesting about the effects of this film is that they ended up needing to use, in order to do a lot of the special effects, especially this scene, they needed to use a lot of condoms and lubricant, which is hilarious given the subject matter of this film. Because what we are going to learn in the next scene, of course, is that Julia is going to start going to singles bars so that she can lure men over to her house.
So that Frank can drain them.
Can you imagine being like, you want puss so bad that you're like, yeah, I'll go bring home a woman so that you can use their blood to regenerate with. I just don't imagine that ever happening.
Okay, so we're going to suspend more disbelief.
A little bit more, just a teensy tiny bit more.
But it's important to do that because the kills begin now.
Yes.
And I love them all.
Yes,
but the
the
first
first
kill,
one.
again, underscores Julia's innocence because she's not happy about doing this. She leaves the house. She looks like she's about to go do shoplifting because she's got the sunglasses and the suit
love
jacket
that
on.
look.
Yeah.
She's wearing these big, huge star earrings. Those star earrings need a fucking credit. Oh my god, those things were absurd. I love her look in this. I would love to look like that at all times.
What did I write about her? So there's a great close-up after the second kill where it really lets her hair shine. This is like an Aquanet sculpture. So Buffon in 80s.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Truly beautiful.
Yeah. But anyways, let's go back to kill number 1, please.
So she goes into a very beautiful bar. She brings home a guy. The dude is a total dweeb.
I feel like I've known you for years.
This is an important sequence, though.
Yes.
Give me a sec. Have some wine.
Why, thank you.
They get back to the crappy house. He goes to kiss her, and she is not into it. Because she knows he's about to be murdered, but also he's not a handsome guy, and she's into Frank, so
Yeah,
this is all about putting
she's into
Frank back together.
She's married to Larry, who at one point she loved. Now she's got a third dude
So-
who she doesn't give a fuck about.
She's very nervous about this, and I think that Clare Higgins
Yeah.
did a great job. I believe her character completely.
You know what's incredible about her? I'm sorry, small aside. She hates horror movies.
Oh, no shit.
She never has seen this movie in full. She had to leave 10 minutes into the premiere
Wow.
Yeah.
Hard up for a job, and what a weird job to grab.
to accept, yeah.
In this scene, it's close up of both of them. This is victim number 1. I think she's already got, remorse, whatever you want to call it. But then he outs himself. He's like, "Hey, why the fuck are we here if we're not gonna get into this? What's your problem? You're not gonna change your mind, are you?" I think is what he says. Yeah. And then you can see the look come over Julia.
And she's like, oh, he's an asshole.
Yeah, I don't feel quite so bad. Let's go up to the attic.
And again, he's totally a dweeb. So once they get up
Yeah.
into the attic, he takes off his pants. And he's wearing those sick-ass tighty
Yeah,
whities.
it looks like a diaper.
Oh, buddy.
Yeah, they're not tidy.
That shot.
Lucy.
Lucy Loose Box tighty whities. And we're going to make that brand.
She didn't even want it to get this far. First of all, she opens the door. He's like, "Where's the bed?" And she's like, "Who needs a bed?"
I've always preferred the floor.
And he's like, "Oh, okay. What a slut." Comes in. Now we see the back of him, and she's already like, "Why is this taking so long?" And then, loser in the Lucy Whiteys decides he has to pee. He's like, "Oh, my bladder's full," or whatever the fuck he says.
And so she grabs a hammer.
Yeah, she's like, "I'll do this my fucking self."
Please!
The hammering shots are absolutely amazing. And then we get the close-up of his head after she bashes him, where he's missing teeth. And it is just so extremely effective. This is a really powerful shot. It's bloody. It's gory. It is so heavily contrasted with her wearing, again, these big star earrings.
It's a great fucking sequence.
It's great.
She drops the hammer. She got blood all over her. It's very powerful.
Yes.
The music comes in again. The music is great.
Yeah. She really, really wants to fuck Frank again, is what's happening.
Yeah, this is devotion to some good eye-popping orgasms. She goes, and we get a great close-up of her in the upstairs bathroom mirror. She's can't believe what she's done, and she does the crappiest wash job ever. Yeah. She's trying to wash the blood off her, and just kind of stops trying.
So Frank becomes more whole with every single drop of blood.
We're still not sure how he ingests.
Yes, I would agree with that. So is the house ingesting?
Well, it did its part, but he seems to sink his fingers into the dude's neck, but then you hear like belching sounds. I don't know if he's already full. We never really see that part, but it's disgusting nonetheless.
Yes.
It's kind of like Hitchcock, use your imagination. Disgusting.
So each drop of blood is putting more flesh on his bones.
And we both want that, don't we?
I will point out, so I think that it's interesting, in these sequences, Frank starts to look like a little bit like those like medical textbook drawings. This is where you get to see him kind of becoming more of a human form.
Slim good body.
Today's bodybuilder challenge is called partner hopping. Here's how it's done.
Come on, come on, come on, come on.
And I like that a lot. I do think that the bathroom sequences are also very interesting. As she is in the bathroom kind of fixing her makeup, getting the blood off of her. Right. She takes off her clothes so that she can clean up. And then she gets dressed again and she puts on a white shirt. Simultaneously, we also have Larry coming home.
Okay.
You want a cookie, little girl?
But before she goes down to see Larry, she sneaks back up to see Frank one more time.
Well, she gets rid of Larry by saying she's sick.
Yes.
Maybe a brandy?
Take your time. And that's when she goes back to the attic room.
Yes. In her white shirt.
Yes, and honestly, I'm thinking, like, don't touch me because you're gross, but also I'm wearing white.
I just cleaned myself up.
Right. So this is where we see Frank. You can see he's put on some more flesh, maybe another organ or two.
Yes.
And he's able to walk. He's like, yeah, check me out.
We also get the first of the several uncomfortable come to daddies.
Come to daddy.
Yeah, the come to daddy thing. I don't like anything about it.
I have never been one of those girls. Like, I think there's a lot of girls who have daddy issues. Much like myself, I'm not putting myself out of that category. Many girls who have daddy issues who like calling a man that they are sleeping with daddy. I think this movie is the reason that I don't like calling people daddy.
Okay.
Like, I think that I will never get into that.
Hey, whatever reason you need, I mean, you shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah, it's fucking weird, right?
Yes. But anyways, this walking, talking corpse is saying, come to daddy.
Yeah.
It's very frightening.
It's very frightening. And something that I do think is also interesting about the film in comparison to the Hellbound Heart. In the Hellbound Heart, Kirsty is actually a neighbor, not the daughter.
No shit.
Not Larry's daughter. Clive Barker intentionally decided to make her into a daughter character in the film because he wanted to make it a little bit more incestuous. So this come to daddy is the first time, I mean, we're getting sort of incestuous because I guess technically Frank and Julia are brother and sister-in-law, but obviously they're not blood related. Kirsty
they
starts
are now.
coming
There's
in,
a lot of blood.
Ooh, hell yeah.
Drink.
I feel like that the come to daddy takes on a whole other level when you look at how sexual this movie is and when you think about it in the incestuous ways.
Yes.
Blech.
Again,
I don't like it.
It's not subtle. Doesn't Julia have to hide the body? She does all the work in this.
She's manipulated or wants the D.
Also, she apparently doesn't have a job. This is what she does now for a job. When she goes back to Frank, that's when he explains the Cenobites. And he also has this awesome unintentional slime drip off of his chin.
It's only a matter of time before they find I've slipped them.
It's so great. It's really, really great.
So the Cenobites are explained finally, and then we get to the pet store.
We get a cut scene here where we get to learn a little bit more about Kirsty, who is working in a pet shop.
It's her new job. She's sucking at it. Everyone's pissed.
Where's the manager?
It's a weird pet store also. A lot of weird animals. There are chinchillas and monkeys.
A python or something.
Yeah.
Could you not do that, please?
But the most important part of the pet shop scene is that the derelict comes in there and eats crickets.
Oh my god.
Eee.
So the guy we saw before, Derelict. Maybe his name's Daryl. You can cut that out if you want.
Derelict my balls.
Okay, we're back. She kicks him out, escorts him out because he's eating all the crickets. And I don't know if she was concerned for the crickets or shoplifting or that a guy's eating living stuff, but he seems pretty much without remorse about this, a little bit blank. He's got beautiful green eyes.
What a lovely description of him.
Gay boyfriend shows up coincidentally. He's like,
Hi.
hey, how's it going? Will you pay attention to me? She's clearly having the worst day, and they hear the sound of Big Bird flying away outside. What the hell was it?
No idea.
Well, we kind of have an idea, but we'll save it.
So Julia brings back another man. After this kill, again, another hammer hit sequence.
He looked like a skinhead.
Yeah.
And he's like, I like to be careful.
Yeah.
Meaning not getting caught, getting laid. And the jump cut is to him just getting hit in the head with a hammer, which I love. And that's a little bit of humor there. Yeah. Thank you, Clive.
Yeah. Frank actually starts wearing clothing and he has a
He looks good.
He does.
It's a Marlboro commercial. He's like, I can taste that.
Yeah, it's the first time I've ever tasted one.
Low tar.
Yeah. He's becoming more earthly.
Yeah, and he looks good in the suit.
Probably Larry's suit now that I think about it.
Yeah, never thought about that.
Neither did I.
Frank probably wasn't a guy who had suits.
No.
I just picture Larry, a scene they cut out. Where's my fucking suit? He's like... And after that is that close-up I was talking about, Julia with her Aquanet hair, drinking wine. After a little panning, you can see she's drinking this all in, no pun intended. She has a little smile on her face. Yeah. She's like, I'm going to get Frank back.
I'm going to have so much dick.
Yeah. Maybe she's digging this. Yeah. The whole shim.
Yes. So this is when her character, I think, becomes mildly evil. Her motivations get a little bit blurred for me.
But she definitely has the biggest arc of all the characters.
Speaking of things getting blurred, we get a little bit more of the backstory about the puzzle box.
Yeah.
Which we learn blurs the lines between pleasure and pain. Which again is why a hedonist would be so drawn to it.
This was a question among us 16-year-olds in '87. If you had the box and you were pot smokers like we were, wouldn't you eventually just want to open it? Even if you knew you were fucked.
That's how it gets you.
That's how, I mean, it's very powerful. Inside
so
here...
So you would open the box?
I'm sure I would get drunk enough to break down and do it. It would just happen. It would be like saying Biggie Smalls in the mirror 3 times.
I'm sorry. You would push the button.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I would solve it by going, boop.
So the Cenobites want Frank back. I don't entirely understand their motivation here, but that is definitely something that I got from that sequence.
Yeah, Frank says the blood brought me back, and they are on my tail, probably. Yes. That's pretty much the long and short of it.
Yeah, I don't really understand why, though. Meanwhile, we also have Larry and Julia watching boxing on TV.
Yeah, it's a cute little...
It is, and I like that. And again, the human characters in this film, I do feel like work extremely well. So we get, during this sequence, we learn quite a bit about Larry and Julia. We learn that Julia has never been a fan of boxing. She doesn't like things that are violent, yet she is simultaneously murdering people with hammers.
I've seen worse.
Larry's doing the stereotypical, get him, watching boxing, and then he's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be enjoying this so much. He sees that Julia doesn't mind. She's sipping her wine. She's constantly having cigarettes.
Yes.
Makes me want one. There's a lot of cigarettes in this movie.
There are a lot of cigarettes. It's 1987. While they're watching boxing, we can also hear Frank freaking out upstairs.
Yeah.
And Larry hears a noise.
What was that?
This is when I was really like, okay, Larry is so fucking oblivious. His wife is literally regenerating his brother's corpse so that she can fuck it silly.
That old chestnut.
That's insane.
Yes. This is why this movie really captivated me, because it is screwy, and it's heavy to think, like, if it was real. There's a fucking human living corpse in the attic, and some guy trying to make a marriage work downstairs, and Julia in between.
In order to distract Larry from the noises that are happening in the attic, Julia seduces him, but Frank is, of course, in the closet.
Yeah, right. So Larry starts up the stairs, and Julia's like, no! He's like, it's okay, come with me. Let's figure out, maybe there's a window open, some shit. Whatever they say in monster movies, it's the wind, right?
It's always the damn
It's always the wind.
It's probably a rat.
And they do go into the attic space first. There's a lot of rats in this movie, also.
Yeah.
Julia's one of them, get it? So,
oh, yeah.
I knew it. Drink. We're gonna need more wine.
Yeah.
She wants to get Larry away. She doesn't want him dead, because Larry could easily be kill number 3, but she doesn't want that.
No, she does not.
All right. So they go to the bedroom. She starts making out with him in the hall, and he's like, hey, I know where we should do this. It's called a bed. So they go to the room.
She doesn't like beds. We already know that.
Yeah. She prefers the goo on the floor.
Yes.
Larry's on top. They still got their clothes on. He looks like he's ready to go downtown, and that's when Frank comes out of the closet. And what does he do?
Switchblade.
This fucking switchblade. Julia sees him and is saying, no, please, I can't bear it. The killing of Larry. Larry is still trying to get downtown.
Larry starts to conflate her protests with thinking that she's saying, no, don't have sex with me.
Don't stop. Don't stop.
Yeah.
Hey, one minute you're all over me, and the next...
And so Frank is like, how does he display that I'll let it go this time?
He cuts a rat in half lengthwise, is how I describe that.
He's like, all right, I'm not going to eat Larry, but I'm going to ruin your night with this. And you're definitely not getting laid.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
So because of that, of course, she needs to find a new man in order to kill.
Or it's going to be Larry, so.
And this is her third kill. But this time, when she brings the guy back, Frank actually does the killing.
Don't let him kill me.
The hiccup with this kill, of course, is that Kirsty actually sees this guy enter the house.
That's right, okay.
This is where we get the third act of the film, the climax of the film. During the kill, Frank is bloody and shiny. He's very shiny here.
He is.
And Kirsty actually, because she sees all of this stuff going on, she becomes curious. She's kind of checking up on the house because her father wants to know what's going on, make sure that everything's okay with Julia. And instead, she sees a man begging for help.
Where does Julia go during this scene?
I don't know.
Why doesn't Julia stop Kirsty from going to the attic?
I don't know. She must be preoccupied with something.
So she's probably cleaning up somewhere, or having another cigarette.
Finger blasting herself, thinking about
Playing
Frank.
with rats. Yeah. Or doing her hair. It must take a while. Frank appears and drags him back in. So they're both horrifying as Kirsty watches this.
And this is really where Kirsty becomes the heroine of the film. This is where she becomes the final woman.
Yeah.
She becomes the powerful one. I start rooting for her.
She's easy to root for because she's tough. She reacts to things in a realistic way. She tries to fend herself off from Chatterbox.
Yeah.
And Frank, of course.
So this is also when Uncle Frank says, "Come to Daddy" to Kirsty.
Come to Daddy?
Which also just incestuous vomit makes me want to die.
I hate
hate that. Her uncle is saying, "Come to Daddy" to her. No thank you. Not hell yeah.
Right.
The opposite of
So she's about to become a victim. He's like, what are you going to do? No one can hear you. You're dead. He was fuck her first, and then
I don't know what his
It looked
plan-
that way.
Some things have to be endured.
I don't know what his plan was.
Okay.
But in response to all of that, she decides that she is going to throw the puzzle box out the window.
Yes, she sees the box, grabs it, and he does the thing that you should never do.
When you want something?
Yeah, and implies of its importance.
No! Give me that.
And she says, you want it? Fucking get it. Throws it out the window. A slow-mo of Frank going, no! I laughed my glasses off.
So she runs out after the puzzle box. She grabs it. She runs down the street.
Yes. She can't believe what she's just seen. She is in a state, as they say.
Come to Daddy.
She's clutching the box, passes out in the streets, and there's an unintentionally funny glimpse of people looking over her from all different angles.
Are you alright?
I love that shit.
It's a pretty goofy. Do you know what
It is goofy, yeah.
That sequence actually reminded me a little bit of Being There, which you and I talked about before. There was something about how each character looked, and then it just felt it felt very voyeuristic. It felt very much like they were looking into a camera. It didn't feel, and so it had this very mildly reminiscent of, maybe I was just thinking about you and thinking about Being There, but. So after she faints, we actually have what I consider to be one of the oddest shots in the film, which is that she faints and then we get this flower blooming, which leads us into her being in the hospital. Usually I like when there are scenes like that in films. It feels so forced here. It is so misplaced for the rest of the film. It does not go with anything else. The imagery doesn't go with anything else. If we had had other beautiful moments of beauty and nature throughout, then I could have thought that this worked really well. We have a puzzle box, which is very rigid and very geometric. We have the Cenobites, which are very hard. Everything is non-beautiful. And then so to have this flower blooming us from her fainting into her being in the hospital, I thought was a very odd choice. I don't know who made that choice. I don't know why they made that choice. Again, that's something that I think I would like in most movies. I did not like it at all here.
It does stand out. It's even shot differently.
Yeah.
It looks like it was done in video as opposed to celluloid. It looks to me as if more of that stuff was cut out, as if there would have been others. Because it's beautiful on its own, but it's an abstraction that doesn't quite make sense. And I guess the symbolism is something coming to life. And you see a little bit more of that because now Kirsty's in the hospital. The doctor says, hey, you remember this box? You were hanging on to it. And she's like, no.
You were gripping onto it for dear life.
Yeah, something like that. They lock her in the room, which is, I guess, what you do in hospitals.
I have a question about this sequence. They lock her in the room. The doctor says to her,
well, the police will want to speak to you.
what the fuck do the cops have to do with anything? She fainted on the street. Why do the cops want to talk to her?
I can't believe I never picked up on that.
The hospital sequence is really weird for me. I don't think that it makes a ton of sense. Like, I just don't get it. I don't understand what we're driving to. I know that we need to isolate her in some way, and so of course we can have her faint. We can bring her to the hospital. She's getting better in the hospital.
We need to put her with the box in a room that's locked.
We didn't have to do all this other crap unless they cut out a bunch of stuff from the film.
She could have been been at her apartment with the box.
Yes,
having
exactly.
a nice dinner.
She could have made it home. Because she's locked in the room with the box, she, of course, plays with it.
Yeah.
Does the pokey button.
Eventually. Yeah.
Eventually. And that opens up the walls of the hospital.
Yeah. It's weird. It could have gone right to the Cenobites, but instead the walls open like a sliding glass door. She hears a baby crying, much like her nightmare before with the feathers. Like any smart person does, walks down the hall.
Very vaginal canal.
I mean, I'd walk down that hall. I would be the hot dog in that hall.
Yes, exactly. This Cenobite is scorpion-like to me.
They call him the engineer, I found out, because he's doing that train down the hallway.
He's running a train on things down the hallway. I had a problem with this sequence. I think that in most of the shots, he looks incredible. His character design is amazing. I think
It's the close-up, right?
It's the close-ups.
Yeah. She gets to the end of the hall and sees this creature that's a lot taller than she thought it was. If she knew there was a creature. It's a strange sequence.
I wish that it didn't get so close to him, because I think that if we had just been pulled a little bit farther back, he would have maintained his integrity, and I would have been terrified.
Right. Again, use your imagination more than...
Exactly what you were saying about Jaws.
When this movie was coming out, because you used to have to watch trailers on television back in '87.
What?
Yeah. There was the shot of her running down the hall back to her hospital room with this thing and with the arms clutching the hallway trying to propel itself forward. But, it's behind her and it's in shadow. It's fucking horrifying.
Yeah.
And you're right. What ruins it is the stupid close-up of this thing that really doesn't look that scary. The engineer.
We now know.
Casey Jones.
Watch your speed.
She looks back, the wall's closed. I don't like any of that. So we don't know if it's a dream or not, and that's what she's thinking. She grabs the box, which has blue sparks flying out of it now. So now Chatterbox appears first, puts his fingers in her fucking mouth, grabs her by the hair. It's tempting, but we're doing a polite show.
This will be YouTube friendly for sure.
Pinhead and the Broad and the Butterball appear. Pinhead, I think his first words in the film. You opened the box, we came.
We came.
And that's how that works. Don't know why they had to have that stupid sequence behind the wall.
You don't like that at all.
No, I like the imagery, but she opened the box and then the wall opened. Like the Cenobites didn't appear and the engineer doesn't seem like a Cenobite. So I just don't understand.
Oh, I was always considering him to be a Cenobite.
I'm sure he's in the gang, but he's kind of like fifth wheel. He doesn't go to the Cenobite parties. He's got to run the train.
He's not invited.
Kirsty goes, she's about to be ripped apart by the Cenobite. She's like, you've done this before, haven't you? Many times, brags Pinhead. And she's like, to a man named Frank Cotton. And the female says, oh yeah, Frank. Forgot about that dude.
Taste our pleasures.
And she says, Frank escaped you, didn't he? No one escapes us. Pinhead lies. She's like, I'll take you to him, if you spare me, of course. Otherwise, the deal is way off the table. And they're like, okay, if he confesses himself to us, we want that fucker.
Then, maybe.
The guy who didn't escape from us. We want to get him.
Maybe.
So Kirsty goes back home.
Frank killed Larry. I'm just going to get to it.
That was a very quick way to get to it.
Well, we don't really see that, do we?
No, we don't. But what we do get to see is that when Kirsty gets back home, she sees a figure that looks like Larry.
Oh, yeah,
who is covered in blood. He has blood all over his hairline.
It's okay, baby. Julia told me everything.
Got jelly blood all over his face. Still talks like Andrew Robinson.
Yeah.
Which is fucking hilarious.
And he says that he killed Frank. But he does this weird eye thing.
So
we like pretty much instantly know that is not actually Larry. It's obviously Frank in Larry form.
Right. So he's talking very sarcastically about I had to put him down like a dog or something like that.
Jesus, what a scene.
He's drinking. Julia and Larry are exchanging knowing glances. Kirsty says, I don't believe you. I need to see. And Larry says, show her. Show her the fucking corpse upstairs.
So she goes upstairs. She's locked in the room.
Julia lets her in and just leaves her there.
And she's there with the Cenobites.
We want the man who did this.
For some reason, they're offended by this.
Because they see the dead Larry. And this is when Kirsty realizes that in fact is her father who is dead.
Come to Daddy.
She says, no, you can't have him. He's my father. She's
She does
just
think
about
that,
to.
yes,
We
you're
are
right.
seconds from that. Cenobites arrive, not fooled. Kirsty comes downstairs. Julia starts to send her back up. Is that the deal?
Kirsty realizes that Frank is actually in Larry form. Frank goes to actually stab Kirsty. Instead, he gets Julia.
He doesn't seem
Upset
remorseful.
about it.
Yeah.
At all. This is the first time that I saw Frank as evil. This whole time, I was like, he's just trying to get his body back.
So much for the cat and mouse shit.
Here, he is evil. He's been manipulating. This is the first time that we know that he's been manipulating Julia the entire time because he does not give a fuck about Julia.
It's nothing personal, baby.
He just knows that Julia is willing to bring him men to kill.
He does come off like such a prick when they first meet. When he comes in out of the rain.
Well, he comes across as a hedonist then.
I guess.
This to me is the first
There's
time.
no nice hedonist. All right, that's for another episode.
This to me is the first time that he really is doing something that is evil, which is that he is hurting the person who has been helping him.
Yeah.
She's clearly been entirely devoted to him, and instead of being devoted to her in any way, or at least respectful to her,
Correct.
not only does he continue stabbing her, but he gets joy out of it.
Yeah,
He's like,
he
all
goes-
right, bye-bye.
He says nothing personal, baby.
Yeah.
As he drains her, and we still don't see how that happens, but she's drained almost instantly. Blue and limp and all that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we only got about 5 minutes left of a good movie, in my humble opinion, because this to me is the best. Kirsty goes back upstairs for some idiotic reason.
Also, can we just talk about what are the Cenobites doing during this sequence? They're all still left in their
Hacky sack.
They're just hanging out. They're like, so should we go down and get him? Or how's Joe doing in the school this year?
No time for argument.
Like,
Yeah.
what the fuck? They
Yeah,
care
they're just
so
like-
much. They just want to get Frank.
They're like, I keep forgetting humans can just run out of the room. Boy, is my face red.
I'm sorry, I interrupted
Oh,
you.
it's fucking fine, because things get silly soon.
Yes.
Kirsty goes back upstairs, realizing that corpse is her father.
Trips over him.
Yeah. Frank comes in with his switchblade.
Bam!
He's like, check out this toy. She falls over the corpse of her father and says, Daddy. And Frank says, you know, don't mourn for him. He was already dead before we got to him. Pretty good line. And he's like, don't worry about it. Everything's fine. Uncle Frank is here. Bastard! Whoops.
Gross. Gross.
Yeah, but he outs himself.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because the Cenobites are still listening. They're just like kind of hiding behind the furniture that's not there.
Yeah.
They appear. Frank seems surprised by this, but you know the blue fluorescent light announces their arrival.
Coming out of the walls.
Yeah. He's like, ah, fuck. Pinhead says, Frank knows that the jig is up. Still got the switchblade though, and he's like, Kirsty, you set me up, you fucking bitch, and goes after her.
Bitch.
This guy's a real jerk.
The hooks are back, but they're coming out of wherever Pinhead looks, by the way. That's his magical power. One from there, also over there. Yeah, it's great. And they string him up like something that's strung up.
Meat hook.
Yeah. It's just manners and etiquette. Pinhead's like, this isn't for your eyes. You might want to leave for this. Which is so unnecessary. But anyways.
Again, that's when I was kind of like, the Cenobites are like a little bit good.
Yeah.
Like,
well, right?
I don't think they're bad guys.
Yeah, I mean, we don't...
They're just multi-dimensional.
They obviously got tricked into this shit. So they want to torture people, but you have to be invited. You don't have to ask for it. And we don't know if there's a safe word or not. There could be. But anyways, they got Frank strung up. They're about to rip his face off. He looks right at the camera and does this disgusting tongue thing.
Yeah.
Goes, Jesus wept. And explodes into blood and flesh as they rip him apart. And it's fucking great.
I do like Jesus Wept very much. It was originally supposed to be fuck you.
Or hell yeah.
Not hell yeah. I am glad that they went with Jesus Wept instead. That was a last minute decision,
Sure.
as I recall.
Yeah, and he's almost crucified because he's, you know.
He's strung up.
You get it. He's strung up.
That if the movie had ended there, I think both you and I agree that would have been the perfect ending.
Yeah. Close up of the box, the end, with a question mark.
Instead, Kirsty starts playing with the box again.
Well, she has to because she's just trying to get out of the house, but then the female Cenobite, who just kind of jumped ahead out of the room, they can do that. Comes up the wall's bleeding. This is where shit gets off the hook, and she has a hook, by the way. It's like leaving so soon. Things go totally cornball here. I fucking hate this part.
Yes.
They're trying to kill Kirsty and bring her back or whatever. They're double crossing. This wasn't part of the deal. She gave him Frank, so now are they evil?
I don't know, because I don't understand the last 5 minutes of this movie.
Okay.
Again,
I'm with you on that.
We're getting, so the box starts twisting, the scorpion Cenobite gets out thing, everything.
Check this out. She grabs the puzzle box from Julia's dead hand, so she now has chains on her in her fucking bed. Why is she in a bed? She should have been crumpled up on the stairs. Yeah. And banishes the Cenobites by reversing the motions needed to open the puzzle box.
No, don't do that.
I would not have known that by watching the film, that she was reversing the motions and knew how to do this. But one by one, she has a corny line for all of them. The best being, go to hell, zoop. And with yellow crayon animation, they disappeared.
Yes, again,
one by one.
The effects were very rushed in this sequence. This entire sequence was done by Clive Barker, and all of the post-production effects here were done by Clive Barker.
Thanks, Clive.
And one other person over a weekend because they ran out of money.
6-year-old.
It's also just a very dull ending for me. Again, I think that it would have been more impactful if it had ended 5 minutes ago. And then, of course, we get even more.
The boyfriend shows up, who we had forgotten about,
Yeah.
and we already established that
meaningless.
He's meaningless. He's like, hey, what's going on? Will you pay attention to me? Butterball's behind him. Ceiling drops on Butterball. And then the engineer appears again, which is so fucking stupid. It's just got to be that last little thing that I always hated about horror movies. You can't end it. You got to have one more little twist. So they battle for the possession of the box. She wins, banishes the engineer back to wherever they come from. Gary, Indiana, maybe.
Makes sense.
And for some reason, the house is on fire. What caused that? We don't know.
The house kind of does the implosion thing, theoretically.
Yeah.
You don't entirely see it. And so now Kirsty and her boyfriend are outside. She throws...
There's little bonfires everywhere.
Yes.
How'd that happen?
Well, because the house was on fire.
Yeah. How does that... Okay. She throws the box.
Into the fire.
Mm-hmm.
And the derelict shows back up.
Hey.
Yay!
Did you guys miss me?
And so he goes to get the box.
Mm-hmm.
He burns into a dragon made out of bones.
Yeah.
What?
Mm-hmm. So it's like a Jenga bird dragon.
He is kind of the keeper of the box, is what we learn from this, because
Yeah.
he is going to return the box to Morocco, or whatever country we were in the beginning. The end of the film ends in the same way that the beginning started out, and I think that that's really, really, that is an effective way to do it, because that means that the puzzle box continues doing its thing.
Correct.
That sets us up for the 9 sequels that there will be, in not including the reboot
Each suckier than the
of
last.
this movie. But I do think that that's important, especially in the 80s. I think that the ways that this film succeeds are that we really do get human characteristics in this movie, unlike so many movies of the 80s. And again, you were saying in the beginning, that is a big criticism of slasher films. Even though we could have dealt without the boyfriend, we got to know all of the characters. Each one of them had very distinct characteristics, and I liked each one of their characterizations.
Yeah.
That is something that is very special about this film. The practical effects are absolutely amazing, but for me, it's just stupid. I can't get past the fact that I like the monsters. I like the Cenobites.
Yeah.
I like how it looks. But for me, everything else is just meh.
The story is the best part, and that is Frank coming back and these guys on his trail. And we don't clearly understand the rules of all this, but Julia having to bring people home, I love all that. The kills, quality stuff. Yeah, but it's stupid on the front and the back.
So for you, this was an impactful movie, not only as a 16-year-old, but throughout your life?
No, because what's funny is I said I've seen it 40 times. I probably saw it 38 times as a teenager. And then just rewatched it as homework for this show. And like you said about other films, you remember them differently, and then you pick up on things that you wouldn't have, especially as a young stoner. Now that I'm an old stoner, the acting and the music really stood out.
Yes.
Because it's missing from a lot of films from this era.
I will also say that I do think that the pacing of this film is also really well done. There's never a dull moment. Despite the fact that there are some dumb moments, none of them are dull. I'm constantly engaged throughout the film.
It is shot very well.
I like Kirsty as the final girl. I'm glad that Julia had her own depth to her.
Yeah, no one is really that cliche in any manner. And that also made an impact on me. Horror movies in the 80s were being churned out left and right. Some of them intentionally tongue-in-cheek, some of them unintentionally hilarious. But again, this I thought was creative, original, and goddamn fantastically violent.
You know that on my channel we like to rate things out of 7 thumbs up.
Okay.
This is a hard one.
Yeah, I gotta be realistic.
This is a tricky one.
Yeah. There's movies that I've fallen out with. I haven't fallen out with this, but the dislikes, I'm going to give it 5. I'll just shut up and say 5 thumbs up. Yeah.
I think that that's reasonable. I think that if it had been a drama, like if we had taken away some of the
instead
horror...
of a comedy?
Instead of a comedy. And if we had taken away some of the horror, if we had split it into 2 movies, and we had made the Cenobites a different movie, and we had made this a drama where there were the incestuous tones, and we got to explore the characters of Julia, Larry, Frank, and Kirsty more, I think that I would have really enjoyed those 2 separate movies, and I think I would have rated those 2 movies very highly in and of themselves.
That's a very good point.
However, I think that together they don't work at all. So I think that overall, I would probably give this 4 out of 7 thumbs up.
Oh, that's generous.
It is generous. It's my least favorite of the 80s horror
like the big
series.
4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's my least favorite.
Okay. So Clive Barker, there was a lot of romance and relationships in his stories.
Absolutely.
He loved characters and development, and so I wasn't surprised to find this because I was a fan of his books before I saw this.
Yeah.
And I was reading Stephen King like a lot of kids my age. And again, you couldn't find a good Stephen King movie besides The Shining, which kind of doesn't count. Hellbound would be the next one to watch and then never watch another Hellraiser. And Hellbound gets even sillier, but there's a lot of creative imagery, just a couple good scenes. Julia comes back, spoiler alert, and the way she comes back is amazing.
Yeah. Well, anyway, thank you so much for joining me to talk about Hellraiser. I really appreciated it. I'm glad that you made me rewatch this one. I probably never would have rewatched this movie if you had not suggested that we did this, and I'm really thankful that I did, because even though it is far from my favorite, I really enjoyed rewatching it.
Yeah, me too.
I did not remember nearly as much of the sexual shit.
Me neither.
Yeesh. Fucking horny ass Julia over here.
I know.
Dude, she was crazy. Anyways, so hell yeah, thank you for joining me.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Would you please tell everybody one more time a little bit about who you are and where they can find you?
I'm producer Chris, and I am constantly sitting next to Carl, smile talking and scream laughing with him on Who Are These Podcasts, WATP. Check us out at whoarethese.com. And check us out at Dabblecon II. Information at WATPlive.com.
Yeah, we can't wait to meet everybody there. And thank you guys so much for watching. I can't wait for the next one. Bye.